I would like to welcome you all this afternoon to the award session of the German Peace Prize 2016, awarded to 3 outstanding books and their authors. For the beginning, I would like to welcome our Consul General Rainer Schmiedchen on stage and ask him to deliver a few words to the audience.
Dear Amina, dear Dr. Faruqi, dear colleagues, friends, distinguished guests in the audience, Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to all of you. Very warm welcome. One of the newspaper headlined today, 7th Karachi Literature Extravaganza gets off the ground. I am not sure whether the term extravaganza is really appropriate, but I'm totally sure of the following. KLF is an outstanding event, perfectly organized by hardworking and most dedicated people. Topmost intellectual caliber, sometimes controversial, but always friendly discussions wherever one stops over. And most notable, the cultural program. We could enjoy live performances of dance and music and the art exhibition curated by Samira Raja, News from Tomorrow, is my personal champion amongst the KLF cultural offers. Having said that, I feel that I should pay tribute to Mr. Intizar Hussein again. I do it because he wanted to be here with us today as one of the winners of the KLF German Peace Prize 2016. If someone passes away, it is always very, very sad for those who left behind. But in his case, the loss is more than sad, it is tragic. Intizar Hussein was a very renowned author, and I trust that his most remarkable contributions for the Urdu literature will live on in Pakistan and in all other countries of Urdu speakers. I was really impressed by the fact that Urdu is of such an outstanding importance at KLF. We discussed the issue yesterday together with our German guest authors, Mr. Steffen Kopetzky and Mr. Christoph Peters, and very fast a new idea was born. It is interrelated with some former students of Humboldt University in Berlin who had the pleasure to study Urdu back in 1982, and perhaps we can implement that idea together with OUP. Back to the KLF German Peace Prize, the winners will be announced in a few moments. As we will hear more about the winners and their works in the respective laudations, I would like to focus on the selection procedure. Suggestions for potential prize-winning publications were made by OUP. The whole selection procedure, leading to a shortlist, in first instance was carried out by the members of an independent jury. Its members are Ms. Rumana Hussein, an author and illustrator, Dr. Hamida Kuro, historian and professor at universities in Pakistan and abroad, Dr. Pervez Khutboy, physiker and professor for nuclear physics, Dr. Taimur Rahman, political activist and musician, Dr. Syed Jafar Ahmed, professor for history and political sciences, Mr. Ali Rahman, one of Pakistan's most senior journalists, a writer and art critic, and Dr. Rasul Baksh Rais, author, scholar, and political commentator. The final decision on the prize winners based on the shortlist was made by the jury members in a second step. Needless to say that the German Consulate General was not involved in a selection process that was absolutely uninfluenced the selection of the prize winners. And all that remains to me at that point is to thank our jury members in the warmest possible terms. My team members agree with me in saying that we feel personally enriched by interacting with you and with OUP on literature and on past and recent developments in our host country. Many, many thanks for cooperating with the team of the German Consul General, and I thank you all for your attention. Thanks.
Yeah. Now I would like to invite Mrs. Amina Sayed, Managing Director of Oxford University Press Pakistan, to address the audience.
Um, I'd like to, good morning to you, Rainer, the German Consul General in Karachi. I would also like to thank the German Consulate in Karachi and the German Embassy in Islamabad for their wonderful support, as ever, for the Karachi Literature Festival. They have, as you know, sponsored this, the Peace Prize, and also German authors who are present here today, and many other activities of the Karachi Literature Festival. So a warm thanks to you. In the context of the ongoing wars in many parts of the globe, we need to sing more songs about peace, compose more poems about peace, and write more books about peace. We at the Karachi Literature Festival, along with the Consulate General of Germany in Karachi, therefore decided to honor the books that promote peace, international understanding, and tolerance. And thus the Karachi Literature Festival Peace Prize was launched. This is a joint project of the KLF and the Consulate General of Germany, and this is awarded to the outstanding author of a book regarded as contributing to the values of peace and harmony, whether between nations or within nations. The jury for the prize, and the names have already been given by Rainer, which comprise eminent Pakistani academics, writers, and human rights activists, have chosen from among the original works written in English or translated into English from another language by a Pakistani or a Pakistani of Pakistan origin, or of a person of any nationality resident in Pakistan. This is the third year in which we will be awarding this prize. Last year, the prize was shared between Ziauddin Sardar for his book on Mecca and Ali Usman Qasmi for his book, The Ahmadis and the Politics of Religious Exclusion in Pakistan. The year before that, it was awarded to the eminent scholar, Dr. Akbar S. Ahmad, for his book, The Thistle and the Drone. So thank you very much, and now I think it's time to announce the prize. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now the tension rises as we will now award the prizes to the authors. We will start with a third prize, so we'll start from the back. And to hold the laudation on the third prize, that is the book The Sea Lies Ahead by Intisar Hussain, who just recently passed away, sadly. I would like to ask Dr. Pervez Hoodboy to come on stage.
Some weeks ago, in fact 8 weeks ago, I received a big box of books, maybe 30, 35 of them, which had to be refereed, and three of them had to be selected for the Peace Prize. I read all but 5, which 5 seemed irrelevant, but the remainder I had read. And there was no doubt in my mind that the one book that stood head and shoulders above every other one was this one, The Sea Lies Ahead, a translation of Samandar Aage Hai. It's translated from the Urdu by Rakhshanda Jalil. It's a book about partition and how families were divided at that time. It's the story of a young man, Jawad, who grew up on the other side, migrated to Pakistan because he had been inspired by the Muslim League. He came thinking that this would be the promised land for him. He was excited. His family did not want him to go. It's a very intricate, it's a very nuanced book. It's not your typical book about partition. It's not ye daag daag ujala ye shab gazida sahar. It's not that. It's not even udas naslein. It's something that has a surreal quality to it, where characters come out of nowhere, then they disappear into nowhere. So in that sense, it's like what Gabriel Marquez would write, or what Gustave Flaubert in French, like Sentimental Education, would have written. I didn't get the feeling that I was reading this book in English. It was as if it was all Urdu because the imagery was so perfectly communicated by Rakshanda Jalil. Why should it be considered for a peace prize rather than a prize for literature? That was the real question to my mind, because there were other books which were more relevant to the subject of peace. But on reflection, I felt that I had no difficulty in recommending this for the first prize. As I said, in terms of literary quality, it stood out head and shoulders above everything else. But why for the Peace Prize? I did it because I think peace cannot be preached. It's dull and boring to say you must have peace. That's so obvious. This book does not call for peace. It does not condemn partition. Rather, it makes the disconnect in an individual's life so apparent and so impossible to do away with. Because this young man, Jawad, goes back to India. He goes back to his village. He meets up with his childhood sweetheart. He finds things are not the same, that they can never in fact be the same. He lives in a world that is split. And in this book, you get the feeling it's not this just one person. It's an entire community that was split. And of course, he is talking about the Muhajirs of Pakistan. He's also talking about the fact that Muhajirs may be lumped as one, but they're actually very, very different from each other. Not just because they came from different regions of India, but also because they were very different individuals. Some who could make peace with the new land in which they had decided to make their own, and others who could never adapt. You yourself, as the reader, are drawn into the tragedy of partition, one that time could never efface. And so that was the reason why I felt that this should be nominated for the Peace Prize. It's a lovely book. I would certainly prefer to read it in Urdu, but as I said, when I read it in English, I got all of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those great words. I would now like to ask Dr. Asif Farooqi to come on stage to accept the prize on behalf of Intisar Hussain.
That I'm here to make the acceptance speech on behalf of Intizar Hussain, who is not here and who was not able to learn about the honor that has been given to his translated novel. What I would like to do is to read out a short extract from Rakshanda Jalil, whose translation has been so vividly praised by Parvez Hoodboy, Dr. Parvez Hoodboy, and this is the form of an acceptance. This is called Burden of Memories and Reality of the Present. This is published in the Hindu, and Rakshanda told me that this is what she would like to be read out. Early on in the Pakistani writer Intizar Hussein's novel, Beyond Lies the Sea, a character says, all sorts of rogues and upstarts, thieves and robbers and terrorists have a field day. The respectable folk are at their wits' end. Where have we ended up? And indeed, the city they ended up was unlike any other they had ever seen. For one thing, the sea itself was new and frightening for most of them, Muhajirs who had come from landlocked towns and hamlets. What is more, each Muhajir brought with him his own Pandora's box of memories that made him name the new enclaves, gardens and housing societies after the ones he had left behind. Aka Hussain, a gentleman from Lucknow, who's given to venting his ire about the ways of the new city, which is Karachi, and its people, also bemoans it's a reign of tyranny and dictatorship. Those who were low-born roll in wealth, and the shurafa, the gentlefolk, go hungry for even one meal, and on top of it all, no one's life or property is safe. And then addressing his question to Majju Bhai, one of the most colorful characters in the entire list of people in the novel, he goes on to ask, "My dear sir, these are difficult times. What lies ahead?" To which Majju Bhai blithely replies, "The sea. The sea lies ahead." Today, when we mourn the passing of Intizar Hussain, let us not merely mourn the passing of a literary legend, the last of the great Urdu writers of our times, a nominee for the Man Booker International Prize, the man who told incredible stories about the partition with gentleness and humanity, and none of the abrasiveness and combativeness of Saadat Hasan Manto and Krishan Chandra. Let us not merely mourn the loss of a literary giant who was all the more taller for his whimsical humor and ordinariness. Instead, let us mourn the passing of an era. Let us mourn the loss of a man who understood his country and ours, and who cared for both with enormous empathy and great wisdom. Let us mourn the man who wrote unflinchingly and with brutal honesty of a land he made his home and which he undoubtedly loved. For it takes a brave man to speak of the soiling of dreams, to look inward and outwards, to live in the present and also cherish the past, to live in the here and now while constantly visiting and revisiting the there that has been left behind. Let our tribute be as much to Intizar Hussain, the man of letters, as to Intizar Hussain, the man of courage and conviction. Let our tribute be to a man who believed in friendship and the joys of a shared past, and who, despite all odds, was hopeful of new beginnings. For truly, with Intizar Hussain gone, there is a vast emptiness ahead. Who will now speak of us about ominous figures, and who will point a finger at the rot within? Who will carry the burden of memories and still own up to be the present? None but Intizar Hussain, who I would not prefer to speak in the past tense. Intizar Hussain in the eternal present. Heather? Yeah. Do you want, I would like the prize to be handed over.
Should we come rather to you?
Can I request Ms. Nazeem Zehra, the author's niece, who can be helped on the stage to accept the prize?
The second prize goes to Dr. Khisar Humayun Ansari for his book, The Emergence of Socialist Thought Among North Indian Muslims between 1917 and 1947. And for the rotation, I would like to ask Mr. I.A. Rahman to come on stage.
Honorable Consul General, Mrs. Amina Sayyed, ladies and gentlemen, I am speaking about this book, The Emergence of Socialist Thought among North Indian Muslims during 1917 and 1947, which scores high as a work of scholarship in a hitherto unexplored area. The author has dug deep into archives scattered across the globe to trace the writings of Muslims in North India who actively participated in the struggle for freedom from colonial rule. Inspired by socialist ideals, they used their pen to campaign for social justice. For many of them, freedom had value only as a means to secure the underprivileged their due. This book is a historical record which illuminates our present and enables us to look into future. But it's much more than that. It offers the people of Pakistan a more authentic perspective on the emergence of their state than what have been fed than what they have been fed upon by pseudo-historians. Regardless of the work done by the Muslim League between 1940, when the demand for Pakistan was made via the Lahore Resolution, and 1947, when the state of Pakistan was born, the people of this country gained freedom as a result of a much longer struggle of the entire people of the subcontinent. And in this struggle, a significant part was played by the writers we meet in this book, and who have, as Dr. Mubarak Ali pointed out, disappeared in the mist of time. By viewing the March to Freedom in the context of the literary and social movements inspired by the rise of the World Socialist Movement, Professor Ansari presents the people of the state a robust alternative to the myths about Pakistan's ideology spread by promoters of narrow-minded communalist propaganda. This should help them to a proper appreciation of a larger contribution made by many more people than they can remember, including the non-Muslim communities of the subcontinent. And without their struggle, there would have been no Pakistan. They should also be better convinced of the right of the non-Muslim Pakistanis as equal citizens of state, something essential for intercommunal harmony that we badly need today. More important than that, this work tells us that Muslim political thought is not characterized by dreams of an exclusive policy, that killing of people in mosques, schools, and imam bargas, and a divorce from reason and tolerance is neither their creed nor their destiny. It tells us about the numerous Muslims, sound of heart and mind, who fought to establish a democratic, secular, and egalitarian order without giving up their personal faith. That is the way to bring peace to the conflict-ravaged society of Pakistan. Thank you, Dr. Khadr Humayun, for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Unfortunately, the author is not able to be with us today as he is in the UK due to other commitments. So I'm asking Mr. Babar Ayaz to come on stage to accept the reward on his behalf.
Thank you. It seems I am destined to take second prize always from this forum. Uh, in last year, my book got the second prize. This year, I am receiving it for my dear friend Khizr. We generally call him Khizr, otherwise his full name is Dr. Humayun Khizr. And he asked me to receive this, and it's an honor for me. Khizr and his wife Sarah, Dr. Sarah, both are historians and teaching at Holloway College of London University. So whenever I go to England, I go and visit them and live with them for 3 days at least. And those 3 days are very intellectually stimulating and at the same time, challenging. About this book, Rahman Saab has already said, I think very rightly, whatever he made, I fully agree with that, and I dare not to agree with him because he is my guru and source of inspiration. And what I feel is that, you see, a lot has been written for the Muslims who were in the Muslim League, and the people in Pakistan know those people who were running this communal movement. But the area which was quite undiscovered was that area where the Muslims who were in the freedom struggle and who worked for egalitarian society and were inspired by the socialist revolution of Soviet Union. So this book actually has, with great research, put all the details of who are those people and how they worked and how it influenced the socialism, influenced the thoughts of the Muslims. So it's not only one narrative that all the Muslims were for the communal politics, but it is a parallel narrative where they were for the egalitarian, socialist and secular society. The secular society which we now dream of, because we have seen in the communal politics, the politics which has given us all the trouble which we face today. So that way it is very relevant to the peace issue, because the peace in this country will never come if we continue doing communal politics as we do since the partition was done. Thank you.
Now we're coming to the first prize, the biggest prize winner. And I would like to ask Dr. Zayed Jafar Ahmed to come on stage to deliver the laudation for the first prize book, The Militant Development of a Jihadi Character in Pakistan by Muhammad Amir Rana.
Thank you very much. I am pleased to read this laudation. Religious extremism and militancy have today spread across the world, engulfing some of the regions in more acute form. Perhaps it would not be wrong to say that the region encompassing Pakistan and Afghanistan has been one of the major breeding grounds of militancy in the contemporary times. Beginning from the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979, the militancy under the garb of jihad was launched with the direct support of the regime in power in Pakistan, the United States, and the Western powers. Today, jihad has become the common slogan for scores of organizations with different targets in the region of its origin, as well as in the Middle East and even in the United States and Western countries. This religious extremism and militancy is posing the biggest threat to peace in today's world. A number of studies and books have been published trying to understand the nature and strength of this threat. Authors have also tried to look into the militant organizations, their human and material resources, and their internal dynamics. Muhammad Amir Rana's The Militant is an addition in this literature. It is a meaningful addition in the sense that Amir Rana does three important things in this study. First, he looks into the mindset of a militant, relating it to his social background. Second, he concludes that to see the militant as a proxy or as a proxy for all times would be a misleading way of understanding him. With the passage of time, the militant has acquired an autonomous status. He moves on from one militant organization to another, and he can also go against the original creator or promoter. This conclusion helps one understand why certain militants originally created by Pakistani security apparatus eventually turned against it. The third important thing brought to the fore by the author is the generational differences between the militants. He proposes to suggest that since 1979, three generations of militants have cropped up. First, after the launching of Afghan Jihad against Soviet Union in 1979. Second, joining the Jihadi project after 9/11. And third, the one emerging after the Lal Masjid operation in Islamabad. To the author, these three generations represent at times quite different mindsets, and with the coming of a new generation, more independent choices and propensity to link with militancy on a global scale. What is the significance of this book? Now that following a national action plan, the state in Pakistan is claiming that it intends to address the menace of extremism and militancy, one would, without going into the effectiveness of the plan so far, argue that if the militancy is tried to be crushed only at the point where it results in violence, it would be a very simplistic and inadequate approach. For a long-term addressing of militancy, causative factors as well as the mindsets of the diverse militant groups and their recruits would need to be focused. The hundreds and thousands of militants may be captured and put in jails, but that itself would not reform the situation. For a genuine reformation, a whole range of socio-political reconstruction of the state policies and perceptions and a democratic, rational, and enlightened state narrative would be inevitable. This is the message of this book, The Militant Development of a Jihadi Character in Pakistan, by Muhammad Amir Rana, that has been chosen for the first prize in the Karachi Literature Festival in the category of books on peace. Thank you.
Thank you. We are very happy to actually have the author in person with us today. So, Mr. Muhammad Amir Rana, if you could please join us on stage to accept the award.
During the laudation by Dr. Syed Jafar Ahmad Sahab, I was struggling to collect my thoughts and also trying to control my heartbeat. And I found myself in a situation of Murid Pur Kapir. It may happen with everyone who receives such a prestigious award first time in her life. And especially, I don't know, it was the nervousness or I was proud that I'm receiving this award in the presence of my inspiration, I.A. Rahman Sahab, Dr. Parvez Hood Bhai, and Masood Ashar Sahab, who basically responsible throwing me in this field of studying counter-terrorism. But one thing I cannot ignore to thank OUP, the Consulate General, Meena Sayyed Sahiba, and the German Peace Prize Committee for honoring me with this prestigious award. Thank you very much, Dr. Jafar Sahab, for your kind words. And especially the judges who had the generous attention. I cannot ignore the support which I got from my colleague and friends. But I do not have the words for my family who stood beside me in all weather, despite knowing that I'm covering or working on some sensitive issues in Pakistan. I've been told that I have to say a few words about my work as well. Dr. Jafar Sahab has mentioned the one component of my thesis. I think this is important to be elaborate further here, that I basically built the thesis on the very human instinct to think. And it applies to all humans, despite the good and bad connotation attached to them. They continue, review, evaluate their views and shapes their actions accordingly. For the last many years, I'm trying to understand the character of the extremists and the militant in a Pakistani context. And I'm trying to understand the militancy as an independent phenomenon which has developed stakes in the conflict economy, have developed the nexus with the international, regional extremist terrorist organizations. But even we simply conceive them or consider them as the proxies. And sometimes they themselves pretend to be the proxies of the states as far as their purpose being served. And interestingly, what we observe, sometimes the creator of the militants themselves caught in the fallacy that they will remain their stooge and puppet forever. Eventually, it reaches at the level where it's become difficult to have the distinction between that who is the real proxy. Ladies and gentlemen, we know that the state and the part of intelligentsia has dealt in the same way with the national identity issues as well in Pakistan. The state has blended the religion and the strategic fear in the thinking pattern of the nation, which is continue breeding the multiple type of the extremist tendencies in our society. And this is interesting that the state believes that the engineering of the thinking pattern is simple. And recently I had wrote in one of my articles that the state think that they can create the narrative to order. If the one set of the narratives is not working, immediately replace it with another. This is the simplistic perception the state and even a part of our intelligentsia and civil society believes in. We know that the the challenge is complex. The extremists are the ideological selves. They have their ideological and political source of inspiration intact. But we have to look at the quality of the responses. Ladies and gentlemen, the problem is complex. Individual efforts are important, but nothing can be done without the collective efforts. Thank you very much again, the organizer of the KLF, OUP, and the Consulate General in Karachi for this honor. Thank you very much.
Coming towards the end of the session, I would again like to ask Mr. Rainer Schmiedchen, Consul General of Germany, on the rostrum for his closing remarks.
Dear friends, honorable jury members, my closing remark is really very, very short. It is the message that the Peace Prize comes only once a year, but we from the consulate, sometimes we have funds. If you have good projects, whereas on literature or on other kinds of art, please approach us, let us know. We are always happy to organize something together between Germany and Pakistan to deepen the connections of the people and the harmony between our countries, which can hardly be better. But anyway, whoever has a good project, please let us know. Perhaps the one or the other one could be implemented jointly with the collaboration of the German Consulate General. Thank you very much for coming and enjoy that marvelous KLF and the next events. Thank you very much.